Over the years, I've worn a lot of labels. My first label was high school dropout. When I was 17 years old, I quit school and got married. Now, I didn't have to get married the way a lot of people thought. I had to get married because I needed to get out of PE classes. I hated PE. And my PE teacher, Mrs. Fulner, I think hated me too. I was skinny and I was uncoordinated and I refused to dress down, so I was flunking PE and I needed a way to get out. So the easiest way I thought would be to go ahead and get married. So, and quit school. So I married a man who had a Harley Davidson and a drinking problem and a really bad temper. In fact, before we were even married, he gave me a black eye. And you know, this was back in the 60s when we were listening to things like My Boyfriend's Back and Leader of the Pack, and all the movies were about teenage jealousy and love. And so I didn't know that that wasn't really okay. I just thought that he really loved me, and he loved me so much he didn't want me to leave, and so he hit me. And so I spent the next 10 years in a very violent and abusive relationship, and I earned my next label of being a battered woman. This was a really scary time because this was back before anybody knew how to respond to domestic violence. And there wasn't a community action agency in Concrete where I lived. So there really wasn't any place for me to go and get help. So it took me a long time to get out of that relationship. I remember the night I ran to my sister's house and I told her what was happening, and she said to me, "Well, I told you not to marry him." And I also remember going to my doctor and saying I thought I should get a divorce, and his response to me was, "You know, I don't think you should change anything unless you really think you can change it for the better." And I guess, you know, looking at me then, I didn't have a lot of potential. So it was, you know, it was normal for people to tell me that. I especially remember the night that my husband at the time threw me down and kicked me until I got back up. And he did that over and over and over. And that's about the time I really realized that if I didn't get out, he was going to kill me. There was another time that he held me on the floor and he had his hands around my neck and he said, "I love you so much, I wish you were dead." And I had 2 little kids at the time, and I really was afraid for all of us. Probably wondering, why didn't you just leave? But when you're a victim of domestic violence and there aren't any shelters and there's no place to go, you really don't feel like you have any place to go that's safe. And as you can imagine, I didn't have a lot going for me. I didn't have a high school diploma. I had never worked before. I'd only picked strawberries. I had always lived in Concrete. I had never even driven on the freeway before because I thought if you got on the freeway, you might end up in Mexico, because I didn't understand how the exits worked. So I'd never really done any of that before. So after 10 years of living with this man, I finally got out and I had to go to DSHS for help. And so that's where I earned my next label of welfare mother. Now, I was that woman in front of you in the grocery store buying the junk food because that was all I could afford. You couldn't buy toilet paper with food stamps, and so I had to get creative. So I was living in Cedar Woolley at the time, and I'd go to a gas station in Cedar Woolley and I borrowed the toilet paper. And it was funny, I was telling that story at a Rotary Club in Cedar Woolley one time, and Doug Wood was there, and he's the former police chief of Cedar Woolley. And he came up to me afterwards and he said, "You know, I worked in that gas station back in those days, and we always wondered what happened to the toilet paper in the women's restroom." I felt really stupid. He assured me the statute of limitations had run out, so he didn't arrest me. But that's how you get by when you don't have any money and you've got kids and you're on your own. And during one of those really bad years, United Way of Skagit County delivered a Christmas basket, a holiday basket to my kids and I, and that's when I really got convinced that people should volunteer in their community, because without that basket of beans and soup, my kids and I probably wouldn't have made it very far. You know, during that time, I also earned another label. I was an alcoholic. I drank because I was lonely and scared, and because alcohol gave me this very fleeting and very false sense of power at the time. So I drank a lot. I'd get babysitters for my kids, and I'd spend a lot of time in the local bars. In fact, I drank so much that I would drink liquid charcoal before I'd go out at night. And I don't know if you know what that's like. It's a little bit like licking the barbecue grill with your tongue. But it actually is supposed to allow you to drink more because it absorbs some of the alcohol. So I was able to drink longer, and I really needed that. One night in LaConner, I was drinking very heavily. And the friend I was with knew I was too drunk to drive. So he stood in front of my car to keep me from driving, and I didn't stop. I ran into him. And he bounced up on the hood, and he bounced off onto the ground. And luckily, he wasn't seriously hurt. But I never had another drink after that. That was the end of my drinking. I suddenly realized that I really needed to make some changes. So I stopped drinking. That was almost 30 years ago. And I also started making some other very serious changes in my life. I got rid of a lot of my friends and found new ones and found new things to do. And I checked into some classes at Skagit Valley College. I had to take my GED, and there was a woman named there, Gloria, who helped me. And I'll never forget, she said to me, "Wow, your scores are so high, maybe you should go on to school and go on to college." And I thought, even if that wasn't true, it was a really nice thing for her to say. And so I went ahead and enrolled in classes, but I was so extremely shy and so out of my element that I'd take my lunch and I'd eat in the bathroom so I wouldn't have to go in the cafeteria because there were too many people. You know, I was from Concrete. It was a very small school. So that was an interesting time for me, but it really did change my life, just starting into school. And I got involved in the Displaced Homemakers program. And all of those things, all of those people that I met along the way really helped me gather my confidence and know that I could do something with my life. You know, I wouldn't have been able to make it through all that if I hadn't had the support of people and organizations along the way. Organizations like Community Action. I actually worked there for a number of years. And it was back when it was very small. There were about 7 of us working there. And I was in charge of the information referral program. And so I got to learn a lot about the community services that were available to people like me. And so I was able to use those and learn about them at the same time and help other people. So during that time, I finished my classes at Skagit Valley College, and I actually earned my BA. And I transferred to Western. It took me many years. It took me 8 years to get my BA, and then eventually, I'm proud to say, I did go on and get my master's degree from Capella University. So I was able to do something that I never thought I would be able to do. And it's just through the help of all the agencies and people that helped me and my kids. Looking back at the labels that I've worn, high school dropout, battered woman, welfare mother, alcoholic, I'm as amazed as anybody to be where I am today. And because of all the support that I've had over the years, I'm able to go on and help other women become stronger and healthier. My husband and I, and he's not that other husband, he's a new husband. I always forget to tell people that, and he kind of gets funny looks after I've talked to people about this. My husband and I have brought back the Concrete Theater, and we're able to give that to the community, and we're very proud of being able to offer that. I'm able to teach at Skagit Valley College, and I teach criminal justice. I teach a class about domestic violence and sexual assault, and I teach, of all things, PE, which I never thought I would do. You should never judge people by the labels that they wear. That all of us have potential, and with a little bit of support from the community, we can all reach that potential. So I just want to remind people that when you see someone who's having a hard time, by supporting agencies like Community Action and United Way and Skagit Valley College and all the other organizations that lift people up, you can do so much, not just for that one person, but for our entire community.